on this week's episode of Forever I Do.
When I was naive and young, I was looking for what I found in the romance novels.
If you're not communicating, you can't rub down the edges. You can't understand where to go.
The first thing I always tell a bride is, what is your vision?
This is Forever I Do. Married for 6 years, Andrae and Lisa Wilson started with an audition for the church choir. Now love just keeps lifting them higher.
Wait.
I auditioned her for a choir.
Yes, I came. I went to church for a choir audition. To be honest, I didn't see him because I was so nervous with the audition. But he was the pianist who accompanied the audition. That's how we met.
I was caught by the smile. But then she never too in a medium time. Maybe too skinny. And yeah. So kinda we're on the choir. I was playing, she was singing, but I was never in her purview, so to speak.
He was in the friend zone for a while. Well, what was it, 7 years? So we
Yes,
knew each other for
like
7
Jacob.
years, like Jacob. So he admitted that he liked me. He was like, he's not my style. He wasn't. He just wasn't my style for different reasons, but personality-wise, and what I thought I wanted in terms of a physical build for a person. So I was looking elsewhere. And then one day he wrote me a letter. He wrote me a letter, and it wasn't like, I love you. It was more of a conversation. It was so nice. And my very, very best friend said to me, just give the boy a chance, man, just give him a chance. I'm saying, but, and I gave her reason after reason, and she gave me another reason, and she knocked down every reason. And then I said, you know what, fine. Because the relationships before were just a bust, each one for some horrible reason. So I gave it a try, and haven't looked back since. The first date was really nice. We went to Alhambra Inn, and I was driving at the time. So when I went and picked him up, he had a rose. And he took me out of the driver's seat and put me around to the passenger seat and handed me the rose, and then he went in the driver's seat and took us to Alhambra Inn. It was really nice.
It was like the day before the date, I first never left school so early. Everybody's like, where am I going? But I was like, yeah, felt like Jacob when he got Rachel. I was happy, I was excited, I was a little anxious because I'm not sure what she would expect. But then I decided that what I wanted to do was show her how much of a gentleman I was. So I did just that.
I must think this in though. Other than my best friend being the one to say, give him a chance, I actually asked God to give me a sign. I was home marking papers that Sunday afternoon. And I was marking and we were texting away. And I said, you know what, God? The next guy I'm going to get involved with and who's going to be my husband needs to be the gentleman. Nowadays it's more, you don't ask, may I take you out on a date? That doesn't happen anymore. And I said, you know what, God, let that be the sign. The next person who is going to ask me out, I'm going to marry, but he has to ask me out like a gentleman. Let me tell you something. Is that God said, all right? 2 twos. Andrae texted me, can I ask you something? And I said, okay, what's that? Can I take you out on a date? I can tell you, I threw the papers away, I threw the phone away. And I was like, God, what you doing? What you doing? Because like I said, Andrae really wasn't in my purview at the time. And that's how I remember searching for the papers. But I remember that was the sign I asked for. Yeah. That was the sign, and I got it. When I was naive and young, I was looking for what I found in the romance novels. The tall, dark, and handsome, or the tall, nice, and blonde hair, and just very, broad shoulders and strong muscles and all that nice stuff, So that's what I was looking for, and the guys that I dated, they kind of fell into that category. So that's in terms of physically. Mentally, I wanted somebody who was strong and someone who could, I'm a very strong person. If you don't careful, I will dominate some things. I wanted somebody who could be over me in that case. Calm me down, because I had to be the type of person who was very independent and strong from a young age. So I needed somebody who could be over that to help settle me. And Andrae wasn't necessarily like that. He was more the calm side. He was more relaxed, and I was more, and I thought I needed that. But then when I realized that I didn't need somebody like me, I needed somebody the opposite, because he taught me how to just smell the roses on the way. I'm like, okay, we need that, that's me. But he's more, look at that, see that, ooh, that's so nice, So it's more the opposite of what I thought I need. What I thought I wanted, he had the opposite, and that's what I was running from. And it looks like it's what I needed.
From the moment I met her, she was this bright persona. She's loving, she's caring. She doesn't think of herself before others. She's always looking out for the next person, what the next person needs, and she's very helpful, sometimes to a fault. But from the get-go, after the smile catch me, it was those things. We were friends for 7 years, because she ended up being the choir director, I'm the pianist. We were in the same group together, like 2 groups. We had one before that was dissolved, and then we had a new one. And so we're in the same circle of friends. So all her boyfriends, I knew them. All my girlfriends, she knew them. And so we met all of them, and we saw all of them. And but through it all, I saw her being that person. I remember saying to her once, don't know if you remember, I said, Lisa, you never give me a chance yet. And she said, you never asked. And I said, oh, alright. And after she had that last breakup, I said, alright, go right there one little time. And it wasn't about, hey, I love you, hey, Ray. It was more like, listen, I know you had a breakup and whatever. These are the things that I see about you that are special.
He affirmed me. He affirmed me in the letter.
And then I sent it. I was like, I remember when I gave it to her, I was like, I know she'll take it. She'll think it's cheesy. And then I didn't understand, because she said, she said to me the day, I gave it to her one day, we were at lunch, and she said, this is so cool, and I was like, Because I didn't understand what you meant by cool.
I didn't know what to do with it because, like I said, the typical persons, you know, who I dated, they didn't do that or have that. So when he gave me that letter and saying all these lovely things about, and even saying things I didn't know about myself, I didn't know what to do with it. So I just went for oh, that's so cool. But on the night, I was on the phone with my best friend, girl. Yeah, I didn't know what to do with it. I couldn't emotionally process it because it had too many things in it that I wasn't used to. So my response was just a fallback because I didn't know how to respond to it.
You know, funny enough, when we decided we were going to get together, we both said to each other, listen, that foolishness. So if we're not looking at this for a long haul, then it don't make no sense. So it was not a decision of if we were going to do it. It was more of, all right, let's get to know each other a little more outside of the purview of friends to say, all right, let's see if we can actually live together. So we started dating and we were going along and we decided, all right, let's figure out what the ring is going to be whenever we decide and pick the ring and all of that and then I bought it, you never know. And I was walking around with the ring for about 2 weeks. I had this great plan, local police and soldier. I had a friend who is a police and I say, yo, I'm gonna beg him set up a thing one day when I go to church, we must make them stop and create this big scene and never materialized. And I think we're going to Mobe because I was playing for a friend. His church had this function and she decided to come. So we went to Mobe. We had a fast that day. So we're fasting and going to Mobe. So me know the night before, Google up sites on the way to Mobe if we can probably pull off the road and do it. And never end up do that. Reach Mobe and we had the fast and we prayed and we did all of that and we were on our way back up. Rain was here, like pouring.
Couldn't see.
Like literally I couldn't see you from where we were in the car. She was driving and we were driving and I just turned to her and said, Lisa.
No, we pulled over because we couldn't see.
We were waiting.
We had to stop because we couldn't see anything on the road. So we pulled over.
So we pulled over and I was there, we were there chatting and I said, Lisa, will you marry me? She said, yeah, you know that already. I'm like, no, seriously. Yeah. I'm like, babe, seriously. And she just started laughing.
Always do that when I'm nervous.
She just started laughing. She was laughing. Did you serious?
I don't know. I don't remember. It was a bit of a surprise, especially how it happened was so low key, but it was so nice. It wasn't this, flamboyant kind of thing. So I guess what he had planned out didn't work out for a reason. So the low key one was nice, and then I think I called late and I was screaming, ah! in the phone after that, and we stopped with scotches afterwards and started celebrating with Nate and Peter again. I like organization. I like things a certain way. So, we worked on most of the details together. And most of them were pretty easy. I think the most elaborate part of the wedding was the walk down the aisle. Again, Leighton, he is a really good friend of ours. So he, being dramatic flair that he has, did this elaborate beginning for the walk down, and the bridesmaids sang down the aisle, and the gentleman walked down to a reading by T.D. Jakes. It was beautiful.
It was a happy wedding. It was a friend of mine, my best man, said to me at the end of the wedding, he said, listen, it's one of the most fun weddings I've been to. Like, because there was no tears, like, people cry and all that. It was just fun. We're having fun, which is what we wanted.
Still to come.
For me, over the 6 years, I've been learning. Our counselor said one thing that stuck with me. He said, before you're married, open 2 eye. But after you're married, lock 1.
But first, we talk gowns with Sara Stanford, CEO of Bliss Bridal Boutique and Sara E. Bridal. Bliss Bridal Boutique partners with top quality wedding gown designers to give brides access to the best the wedding industry has to offer at a great value.
The first thing I always tell a bride is, what is your vision? Think about what it is you want to look and feel like for your wedding, right? Because you go through and you see all these Instagram and Pinterest, and you can get completely overwhelmed because every gown is more gorgeous than the gown before. But you have to think about what is it that you want. So are you doing something on a beach, and therefore you want more of a your wedding vibe is more easy breezy, relaxed, you're gonna dance night away and that sort of stuff. So if that's the case, then the big poofy princess ball gown with the long cathedral veil and the tiara may not be the vibe that you're looking for. So really, before you start getting influenced, not just by what's online, but also by family and friends, is have a good idea of what it is you want to look and feel like on your wedding day. But here is my philosophy. Brides ask me all the time, Sara, what dress is going to work best for my body type? And what I always tell them is a dress that's going to work best for your body type is a dress you feel the most confident in, hands down, right? So you may see a lot of these lovely mermaid gowns and it's boom, bam, boom, right? And you feel that you have the body type for it, and you may. But when you put on the dress, do you feel like a bride? So, the first thing I say is whatever makes you feel good. But as a general rule, and this is one of the reasons I wrote the book that I recently wrote, The Jamaican Bride's Ultimate Guide to Wedding Planning, is because a lot of the information that's out there are geared towards the more Eurocentric bride. So I've seen, well, if you're very hippie, you should wear an A-line gown to minimize the hips. Which Jamaican woman want to minimize her hips on our wedding day? Right? It's just a fact. So what we want to do is show up the curves, whether we're a size 2 or a size 22. So if you have what they call that pear shape, so you're smaller on top, hippier down on the bottom, a mermaid style is fabulous for you, right? If you are, if maybe you don't have the wider hips and maybe you're a little bit more straight, then an A-line or a ball gown that's gonna give the illusion of smaller waist and wider hips will give you that more hourglass figure. So for any bride, I can almost give any bride that hourglass figure once it is that she's open enough to say, okay, maybe not a mermaid, try something else on. All right, so the first process is to schedule an appointment. I tell brides all the time, purchasing a wedding dress or renting a wedding dress is not like going and buying a pair of jeans. It is a once-in-a-lifetime experience that needs to be treated as such. So we schedule an appointment. When you come for an appointment at Bliss Bridal Boutique, we set that time aside for you and your entourage, whoever that may be. Then we sit down and we talk. I want to know not just about what you're looking for in your wedding dress, but I want to know what kind of vibe are you having for your wedding? Is it a small wedding? Is it a big wedding? Is it a more traditional wedding? Is it a church wedding? Do we need to look at proper coverage for the different church that you may be getting married in? Once we figure that out and you tell me, I then say, okay, what are you looking for in terms of fabric, style, all that kind of stuff? Based on what you tell me, I'm gonna take everything in. I may not think that what you tell me is the right thing for you, but that's okay. The first thing I'm gonna do is give you what I have that matches those prerequisites for you. Once we put that on, then you can tell me, and the people that you've brought with you that you trust, if this is the right style for you. And if it's not, then we move on and try something else. A lot of times brides will come to me with pictures of dresses that are custom dresses that have been custom made for that bride, for that wedding, for that picture. We rent gowns. We sell as well, but we rent. So when we rent, while we can do alterations to make sure you get a good fit, I may not 9 times out of 10 be able to customize to the level that you may want that customization. Now, if you have the budget for that, If you have thousands of US dollars to spend on a wedding gown, then definitely we can look at customization. But what we try and do, like for example, one of the trends that have come back since I would probably say the 80s is sleeves. Sheer, lace, fabulous beaded sleeves. They're fabulous, but they're not practical for rental. I can't take them in and take them back out. They don't stand up well to the cleaning process. So as much as you may want a full long sleeve lace gown with a full lace beaded back, it's not practical for me. So what we do is we find alternatives. So every time I say to a bride, let me try a bolero, she flips. Because everybody has an idea, look at jackets, right? That put a little bead on, but it just looks like hell in a hay basket. So, but my boleros are not. When I add a bolero to a gown, it just takes the gown to the next level and gives the bride the coverage that she needs, the elegance that she needs, and the look that she needs. So we just really try to find that balance. And I find once a bride comes to an appointment with an open mind, it's easy sailing from there. I tell brides all the time, the most important thing, next to a good strapless bra, the most important thing you can bring to your bridal appointment is an open mind. One of my designer gowns is going to cost for purchase from a low of about 1,500 US up to almost 3,000 US. These are the same dresses that you can rent from me for 60,000 J, right? And so the price is going to be one of the first considerations a bride's going to have to decide between renting and purchasing. The other thought process she's going to have to think about, does she want to keep this dress? Maybe she wants to keep it and change it up a little bit for her 25th anniversary, or give it to her daughter, or cut out some of the lace and make her first child's christening gown with it, right? Or something like that. If it is you're a very sentimental person and you want to be able to keep that dress and you have the budget, then definitely buy. And then the last consideration is some brides are not comfortable with the fact that, oh, somebody was wearing this dress before me, right? A lot of brides don't really care. If it is that's really important to you and you can't manage the thought of that, then definitely purchase. But the first consideration usually is the budget and what the bride and groom can afford. I tell brides all the time, sometimes you have to kiss a couple of frogs before you find your braids. So, and that's the process. And then once we find the dress and she said yes, and we go ahead and confirm everything, then we talk about all the details because we need fittings. Just because you're trying the dress today, you're getting married 9 months from now, doesn't mean that the dress is going to fit you the same, right? And so we always have to do fittings with our seamstress to make sure that the dress fits perfectly. So Bliss Bridal Boutique, we are on Instagram, Facebook. Our Instagram and Facebook is Bliss Bridal JA. We are also, our website is blissja.com, and we are at 79 Arden Road.
Thanks, Sara.
Hi, we're Andrae and Lisa, and you're watching Forever I Do. One of the things that I've wanted to do was to write a book, right? That's some kind of memoir or something. Because in life, even sometimes in counseling, you get this idea that oh, marriage is so lovely, it's so nice, you're just spending your life together and you're lovey-dovey all the time. It's not like that all the time. Granted, for the most part, we are happy. The wedding, or marriage, we are happy. There are times though when, and I'm sure he wants to do the same thing, and it's rough, especially when at the beginning when you've never lived together. So now when you move into each other's space like that, and because during the dating you had this mask on, so you're always impressing each other. But when now you're married and the mask come off, and now you're really seeing what each other is about, it becomes a bit rocky sometimes. And we used to argue frequently in the first year or so of the marriage, so it's not always handed down first too. But then you get used to it, and you learn how he is, and he learns how I am, and can't say we don't still argue about some of the same things, but we're happy. I wouldn't say I'm going to go to the divorce court right now.
For me, you you come into the marriage and you're this way, she's that way. She's independent, you're somewhat independent. You have your habits and you have your things that you do that are just you. And so you come into a space now where two of you are together and those things don't necessarily agree. So her process after work is different from my process after work.
Goodness.
And so it becomes a tussle because now that's where the compromise has to come in. And a lot of times we don't really like let go of our we safe space and we, you know. But you learn over time that, listen, a friend of ours said once, he said, look here, there comes a time when you have to decide, is spreading a bed worth my marriage? Is washing a car, is doing the dishes, is it worth a marriage? And so you have to know, start consciously dig away at those things yourself, because she can't do it for me and I can't do it for her. We can communicate and say, oh, that is affecting me, and then each of us have to actually say, alright, yo, that affect her or that affect him. So I'm going to try and do this and try and do that so that it starts to mellow out.
When you had Alex, Alex was kind of fairly easy because 20 minutes, 30 minutes after we got to the hospital, Alex was born. And transitioning into parents was a little bit rough, and I think because of my personality, I got there faster than Andrae, and it caused a little tussle between us because we weren't on the same page, we weren't talking the same language. And then over time, it got a little bit easier. But with Liam, the second one, it was almost like this. And they have brought us together. They brought us closer together. And trust me, it can cause contention, the boys. But they brought us closer together, and I'm able to understand him more, because now we're having to change the profile again. In marriage, you change, you keep changing. So now it's not just the husband and the wife, it's now the father and the dad, and we've had to grow in those capacities, and I think it has enriched our marriage. Sleepless nights sometimes, but it has enriched our marriage. That's what I think.
Babyface wrote a song. He said, I think he wrote it for his wife about the day she gave him a son. And just to see what she went through to have our kids, it said to me, yo, yeah, man. Another thing that made me say, yo, this is a lady, how my mother has taken to her. I've only introduced my mother to 2 ladies, and like 3, but the relationship she has with Lisa is sometimes jealous. Like, my mother doesn't call me for more than 30 seconds unless it's something important. And then she will call Lisa and I'm gone 3 minutes. Alright. But I'm my son. You know? So I mean, that relationship that they have has said to me, listen, the respect and the love she has for mommy, respect that mommy has for her, it's said to me, listen, this is a good one. For me, over the 6 years, I've been learning to understand her and what she needs. Learning, I am not a big talker, and when it comes to my feelings. And if I feel as if though, there are 2 things. I don't like to talk about feelings, and I don't like to disappoint people. So if I think I'm going to disappoint her, I'm going to somewhat shut down. If I feel as though I am going to speak and yet it's not going to necessarily be heard, I'm going to somewhat shut down. And then most times she have to dig it out of me. And then that causes an next argument. But if it's one thing I've learned, communicate more. There's no two ways about it. There's no bones about it. If you're not communicating, you can't rub down the edges. You can't understand where to go. We had this joke when we got married. First 3 years, I will be driving down the road and I think something and she said, or she thinks it, I say. It still happens, but a lot of times when it comes to the real serious things, that don't necessarily happen. So we have to learn to talk. Our counselor said one thing that stuck with me. He said, before you're married, open 2 eyes. But after you're married, lock 1. Because then you're going to nitpick at everything.
Thank you so much, Andrae and Lisa. Here's to many more years of happiness and wedded bliss. On the next episode of Forever I Do,
it was a Saturday extra class, man. And I sat at the back of the class and I thought it was a chemistry class because when I saw her first.
You're now in full-time ministry. You're not a student anymore. How is this thing going to work?
plus we share some wedding menu ideas with Executive Chef Mark Cole. Thanks for tuning in. See you next week. Makeup services by Nardine Makeup. Coordination and planning, Shakima Hines of Island Bride, Jamaica. Set decor, Thai Flora Lux. Forever I Do is filmed on location at the Jamaica Pegasus Hotel, your wedding destination in Kingston, Jamaica.